Hey guys, this is Rich. I'm the youth minister for St. Anne's Catholic Church in Kenosha, and this is Mary Grisenia, and she's a theology teacher at St. Joe's Catholic School. What else do you do there?
I'm also a part-time campus minister there, so I'm in charge of coordinating all of our retreats, our entire retreat program from first grade all the way through 12th grade, and I'm also the co-coordinator of our Nicaragua mission trip that we do every year with our senior class.
And actually, we're both parishioners at St. Anne's here in Pleasant Prairie, and we both belong to the Life Night Core team, which is our high school youth discipleship. And this year, we are taking a trip on July 20th through the 22nd to the Steubenville Youth Conference at main campus at Franciscan University in Steubenville, Ohio. And that's kind of what we want to do. We just want to make a conversation because I know parents and youth have a lot of questions with regard to if my child has never been there, what is it like, and what happens there, and what is my child going to get out of this, and the cost. For example, our trip cost $350. Some of the questions would be like, why would I dish out $350 for a weekend? We have a lot of other things planned, and we want to go on family vacations and different things like that. All summer or all year, my child is go, 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 and summer's the time to be with my kids, so why would I send them away? These are just some of the concerns that I've heard as a youth minister. We just want to address some of these things and just have a conversation. So Mary and I both have led trips to the Steubenville Youth Conferences in Ohio, in Kenosha, Steubenville on the Lake. Where else have you been?
St. Thomas in Minnesota, so at St. Thomas, way up north, and then as well as Kenosha, and finally Missouri. So it was our first time in Missouri this past summer.
Yeah, and actually, the Steubenville Youth Conference, and jump in if I'm like totally off on my numbers,
Yep.
but the Steubenville Youth Conference has been around for about 40 years, okay? And it started at Franciscan University and has just multiplied and fruitified, or whatever you want to call it, to where they have these conferences in like 20 locations. There's over 20 youth conferences over the course of every summer. And over the course of the last 40 years, it's like this crazy number, like 600,000 youth have participated over the course of these 40 years. So we just want to address some things. So I know you've been to Steubenville many, many times, these conferences. So just kind of explain, if somebody says, this is the first question I always get, is like, well, what is it exactly?
Right. The first question I get is like, Stupidville or Steubenville? Like, okay, what's the name here? It's the Steubenville Youth Conference, and what is it? And people are like, is it Jesus Camp? Am I just going to be like listening to a priest talk at me like all weekend? That sounds really boring. And essentially, I've heard many students describe it this way, or many kids describe it this way, is it's like a rock concert with Jesus for like 3 days straight. And it's really electrifying for kids to see their peers encounter Jesus. I think that's a really huge turning point for a lot of kids, is seeing if they're a little hesitant or resistant about going to the conference, is seeing maybe students who are a little bit further along on their journey with Jesus, or in a deeper relationship with him, or have had an encounter with him prior, seeing them kind of come alive and get excited about the weekend. And they're like, okay, what is it about this experience? And that kind of draws them in. It's interesting seeing them kind of just take in what their peers are experiencing and maybe open up through just observing what's going on with the people around them. And that allows for their own encounter, which is really interesting and something I've witnessed time and time and again.
Yeah, one of the things that I could say, I've been to 5 Steubenville Youth Conferences since I've been a youth minister at St. Anne's, and it's really interesting because we take all sorts of kids, and everybody, regardless if you're an adult or you're in ninth grade or you're going to be a freshman in college, everybody's in a different place in their faith journey. In fact, some of the teens we've taken, come to find out, didn't even want to go to the youth conference. And this is something that I give the parents credit for challenging their daughter or their son to say, hey, you know what, you're going to go to this, and you let me know whether you like it or not, because that's a big risk in your relationship, to send them to something that's an elective that that they may resist. And so we've had several students say that, hey, I found out on Thursday night that I was going to be going to this conference. My mom says, oh, yeah, here's your bag. You're going to this conference.
Exactly.
And they're like, I'm doing what? And because mom or dad knew that if they had given them more time to think about it, they would have found reasons not to go.
Right.
And I think that is because faith in Jesus and proclaiming it out there and being overtly Catholic, it can be uncomfortable.
Yes.
and what are the cliches? Not cool, and
Not cool. Jesus freak,
holy roller, whatever you want to call it. And so as a 16-year-old or 15 or 17-year-old, it's not necessarily like the tag you might want.
No.
And go ahead.
I had a colleague at St. Joe's who's an excellent teacher, an amazing young woman, and she believed in Steubenville so strongly she actually had attended Franciscan University and had her own conversion at a Steubenville youth conference years ago, and really was such a great recruiter for the conference. And she would tell kids, if you do not come back changed and having loved that experience, I will personally refund your money. She had so much faith in it. Not a single kid when we got back took her up on that offer. And you think a kid would be like, yeah, give me my $300 back. Or a parent would be like, yeah, sure, shell it out, give it back. And she had so much faith and confidence in it. And the kids indeed got so much out of it that they didn't look back. And they didn't even think about how much it cost. So I just think that's always a really powerful example of kind of that faith in what the conferences can do.
Yeah, and honestly, over the course of the 5 years, I've probably taken about 150 kids, and I can't recall one regretting or having a bad experience. Every single one has had a good experience, has deepened their faith, has realized things not only about themselves but about Jesus, about God, about the truth of the Holy Catholic Church that they didn't realize. Oh, I didn't know the Catholic Church taught that, or I didn't know that's what we believed in as Catholics.
Well, I didn't even know the Mass could be this engaging. The Mass has all of these layers and levels, and it's really powerful. And they don't get that experience maybe at their local parish. And then all of a sudden at Steubenville, the way it's explained, the way that it's executed in such a reverent and joyful manner, that really touches the kids, and they come back and they want to go to Mass or they want to go to adoration at their local parish. I've had students over the years who I've taken who have come back to serve on our retreat team because they've been so inspired by their experience at Steubenville that they almost want to recreate it for their peers at our school. And they'll say, and they'll promote it, Steubenville changed my life. I was really angry at God, and then I went to Steubenville. Or I had no idea what I was actually struggling with until I went to Steubenville. And just a lot of powerful testimonies and witnesses and discipleship that has come out of their experience and kind of the trickle-down effect within our school community because of Steubenville.
Yeah, and I think that speaks a lot to the power of the Holy Spirit, to the way the conference is put together, and to the transformative nature of the conference. It really is something different for everyone because it speaks to that God knows what you need, God knows what you lack, God knows what healing has to take place in each individual's heart, and those are the kinds of things that happen at the Steubenville Youth Conference. And what happens is like, let's be honest, like your son or daughter is part of your family. You guys are a unit. there may be parts of your relationship that are lacking. Maybe you just have a disconnect with your son or daughter. I've seen it where, and this is very common, broken relationships between parents and sons and daughters coming back together. The minute that that student gets off the bus and is picked up by their mom or dad, I've seen the hug, I've seen the tears, and I've heard the "I'm sorry, I love you," and go on, and it changes a family, you know. And those young people that have attended, I mean, they come back and they want nothing more than to just live this new life of faith that they've experienced. And so, you know, maybe we can talk about some of the specifics, like what happens. Let's kind of go over logistically.
Sure.
You know, so the Steubenville Youth Conference this year, for example, we're going to Steubenville, Ohio. It's 9 hours away, or maybe 8.5. Depends on which bus driver is and how much coffee he's had. But so it's about a 9.5-hour drive, 9-hour drive. We leave for really early Friday morning, probably around 5 a.m. I don't have the exact time we're leaving yet. And we're taking coach bus, very comfortable. We'll get there in the afternoon on Friday, check in, and the young men will be in a dorm, and the young ladies will be in a dorm. Okay. Pretty much everybody, the 2,000, that's about 2,000 students, right, at these conferences?
It might be more at main campus. I know at Steubenville on the Lake it's about 1,300, and then out in Missouri it's close to 4,000, almost 5,000. So each location has a little bit of a different number, but approximately about 2,000 students at this location.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're sleeping in the dorms. The dorms are vacated because there's no college students in the summer, and enormous amounts of chaperones. In fact, our group this year, we're doing a 5-to-1 ratio. So for every 5 students, we have 1 chaperone. When the Archdiocese and Steubenville require an 8-to-1 ratio, we want to be a little better than that.
Yeah.
And it makes it, for a couple reasons. I think it makes it easier on each individual chaperone to just say, okay, check, I know where our kids are. And the second reason, I believe, is if our young people have a good relationship with the chaperones, who are also the small group leaders, who over the course of these 48 hours, we're going to be sharing a lot of stuff. If you can start developing this relationship with the chaperones, with your adult leaders, the students are going to have a much more fulfilling trip, because they're going to be more at ease to be able to share and to be able to open up. And when you release and when you surrender and you allow yourself to fully engage in the conference, God will do his work. You open the door and he will come in. And and so that's logistically, that's so 5-to-1 ratio with chaperones. Meals
are taken care of in the cafeteria, maybe multiple cafeterias or locations on campus. There's different meal times depending on how large your group is or kind of how the conference is set up. Each location is a little bit different every year, just depending on their facilities and what they have in place. But the students are fed, and they're fed really well, actually, over the course of the weekend. I would say nobody really goes hungry. They have concessions and things like that, I think, on most campuses that I've been to in between different sessions and things like that. Kids will bring their own snacks or like a protein bar or granola bar to eat as well. So they never go hungry. That's never an issue. And I think one night, in fact, that they usually connect with a local pizza place, the conference does, and they actually say, go ahead and order pizza from this place. And so they're all set up and ready to do that.
Yeah, a lot of times Saturday night is a big processing night. People have been really pumped up because Saturday night adoration is a very emotional and joyful evening. And nobody wants to sleep. So usually we get some pizzas. We gather in in an area where we can put our group, and we just talk and share and pray and worship, and it's just a beautiful encounter of fellowship and prayer. And we're talking all about like Steubenville, like all this prayer and this fellowship and all this encounter with Jesus. And you might be watching or you may be watching for your child. You might be a teen and you might be saying, well, this ain't for me, because
No, it sounds really boring.
That's for people who are into their faith, and it sounds kind of boring. So what do you say to that? Like the person that has never gone to youth group, the person that goes to church maybe just because their parents make them go to church, or maybe their parents don't make them go to church, and it gets up to them. So they say, you know what, I haven't been to church in 3 months.
Right. And I think what's really great about Steubenville is that the conference leaders, the speakers, have a definite realization and understanding of that. And they meet you exactly where you're at in your relationship with Christ, whether it's non-existent or it's this really beautiful, well-rounded experience and relationship that you have with Christ. So they meet you where they're at. What I love is it's 2,000 people and chaperones and small groups, and yes, we're all in kind of fellowship with each other, and we're all really excited, but we're all sinners, right? All of us have a mess that we're dealing with somewhere inside of us. Doesn't matter if we're an adult, if we're a kid, if we're one of the speakers on the stage, doesn't matter. And I think that's something to really be aware of when you walk into the conference, is that there are nuns and there are priests everywhere, and that's awesome. But those people are sinners too, right? And they're going to have an amazing experience kind of no matter where they're at in their particular relationship with Christ. So everybody's on a very particular journey. And I would say don't let that hold you back from kind of starting out on your own or diving deeper into your own. Like I said, it's 2,000 plus sinners all gathered together, yearning to be fed by Christ, yearning for a deeper understanding of who he is and what he can do in our lives if we just surrender. So much of the weekend is about just being open, even if it's just a little bit of curiosity is enough for God to do amazing things. And I've seen it time and time and again.
Yeah, and the one thing that I can remember, just because it's only been less than a year, every Steubenville conference does not start out when you get off the bus.
Yeah, right.
Get into it is not. You step off the bus, you get into
on
this
your knees,
auditorium,
kneel down.
and surrender to your Lord.
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's not like that at all. Because God knows the human heart, and the people putting on this conference have been doing it for 40 years.
Right.
There is an art that the Holy Spirit has crafted to be able to do this, to be able to say, hey, you know what? We're just going to have some fun tonight.
Yeah.
And so it's really chill. It's really fun. You're like, this is you might even say, this is a Catholic conference. This is supposed to be religious. Doesn't seem like it.
Right.
Just seems like a concert, And I think that's the cool thing is that there's no intrusion on your personal space. No one is actually going to come and tell you, you need to give your life to God. That's not going to happen.
Right.
But I would bet money. Well, maybe I wouldn't bet money, but I would gather and probably think there's a really good possibility that by the end of the conference, you're going to want to change your life. Yeah. And say, hey, there's been some things I've been neglecting. One of them being God. One of them maybe prayer. Maybe one of them is some of your relationships being mended, whatever it might be. And you're gonna go back home and actually have a very tangible to-do list. And at the same time, not feeling horrible about yourself.
No.
Actually, you may actually realize, wow, I've been too hard on myself. Yeah. I thought I was a jerk, or I thought I was unlovable. And you may be going home saying, I had no idea I was this awesome.
Right, and I was so loved, and that God's mercy is so powerful. At the Steubenville conferences, There are probably close to, I don't know, how many priests would you say are there?
50.
At least.
Yeah.
At least, depending on the size of the conference. And so, I mean, usually at least, I mean, a group brings a priest. At least, you know, every single group. And it depends on the size of the group, obviously. But reconciliation is offered multiple times throughout the conference for hours at a time.
Pretty much the entire conference. There are many priests sitting down waiting
to hear confession. And while there are stage times, I remember 3 years ago now, one of the students in our group, we got to the conference. He'd been to a conference the year before, and he knew he needed to go to reconciliation. And he just walked up to a random priest he saw before Friday night even started. He was like, Father, can you hear my confession? Like, please, like, I need you right now. And the priest took him out and heard his confession, and he came back in and he was ready to start the night, and he knew he needed that. So even if you feel like, I don't want to go to confession with all these other people, I don't want to wait in line, either go with the priest that's in your group, if you have one, or walk up to they should be very accommodating, and that's what they're there for. And a lot of priests want to hear your confession.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter the time or place, really, and they'll find an area where they can hear your confession. So I definitely encourage anybody who goes on the trip. I go almost every time I'm at a youth conference. I let the other kids in our group go through the line, but if I find an opportunity, I go, because just like everybody else, I need reconciliation, and it's just an amazing time to do that. And before adoration on Saturday night, to have that experience of God's mercy in such a profound way, can be really life-changing. And if you haven't gone to confession since your first confession, which many of us haven't, it can be a really intimidating experience. Like, how do I do this again? I don't remember anything. I don't know the importance of the sacrament. And you feel at a loss. And that's really okay, because they have little packets that they give every student and every participant on the trip or at the conference, various holy cards as well as a rosary, and then an examination of conscience card that literally walks you through the 10 Commandments and various failings in areas of your life where you may need to put in some more work and some more time, and the whole process of going to confession and going to reconciliation. And that's very helpful. If for whatever reason you don't want to use that, you can also just sit down in front of a priest and say, Father, it's been since my first confession, or it's been since like 3 years ago. I have no idea what I'm doing. Please help me. More than willing to help you. Absolutely more than willing to guide you through the process. Don't be ashamed to go to confession. Priests go to confession. I tell my students this all the time. Did you know that priests have to go to confession just like everybody else? Okay? Nobody's perfect. And I think every person that stands in that line and goes to confession at Steubenville is a really courageous person who's just trying to do the best that they can do and further their relationship with Christ. Amen. So that's it's a really profound thing when you have thousands of people going on that weekend.
So one of the questions that we get and that I've had parents approach me on is, and by the way, yeah, I mean, confession, it's, I don't even know if this is proper to say, but like Steubenville is like confession on steroids, and it's like it is like I almost guarantee your kid will come back having gone and received the sacrament of reconciliation. And what's weird is they may even go because of peer pressure, but they'll go because like, there's
I'll go
lines.
if you go. I'll stand in line with you, and like.
Because then it starts becoming, did you go to confession? Did you go to confession? And then it starts being like, hey, I think I need to do this. Yeah. He went?
Right.
I didn't think he'd go. Well, if he went, I'm going to go.
Exactly. I had girls waiting in line with me last year, and they were, going over their examination of conscience and just kind of talking to each other while they were waiting in line. And at one point, they were like, wait a second, are you going to confession? And I was like, yeah. So, like, we thought you were just, like, with us, like, chaperoning. I'm like, well, yes, but I'm also going to confession. And they were really shocked by that. So, there's a lot of amusing conversations, a lot of heartfelt conversations in that line, and kind of just talking through various things and various issues. And it can be a really amazing experience, and people pump you up when you're in the confession line too, and encourage you, because it's not easy, it's not a comfortable experience, but it's very unifying with Christ's sacrifice on the cross, because that was obviously not a comfortable experience. So there's there's just so much good that can come out of that. And once they kind of cross that threshold in going to the sacrament at Steubenville, I think it becomes that much more natural and comfortable for them to go at their home parish or in any of the parishes in their area. Maybe if they don't want to, someone because like, I'm not going to my priest. Okay, but you still should go.
Right.
So they get up the courage, and it's they receive the sacrament more frequently once they kind of rip off that Band-Aid at Steubenville in such a safe and welcoming environment. So I think that's definitely one of the reasons to go. If your student is hesitating to go to the sacrament when they're at home, send them to Steubenville. It'll make it that much more easy for them to go when they get home.
And I would say, one of the things that's great about Steubenville is your student, your child, will experience the fullness and the richness of the Catholic faith like they've never seen it before. Mm-hmm. If they've never been to a Steubenville Youth Conference, they will experience the truths of the Catholic faith, just unwrapped to the deepest level. At the same time, they will see the richness of the Catholic faith in song, in teachings, in fellowship, in the sacraments. And and I get so many students that say, I didn't know being Catholic could be this cool.
Right.
That so much joy could be had at Mass, that so much fun could be had in fellowship with my fellow teens, my fellow brothers and sisters. And they're just shocked at this new life that could be found in the church.
Right.
And living a pure and holy life by no means, and they'll learn this, does it mean a boring life. And this is something I learned as an adult, but this is what the Steubenville Youth Conference is trying to teach. I always tell people, once I gave my life to God, once I delved deeper into the Catholic Church, my life has been nothing but adventure. Mm-hmm. My life has never been better. Yeah, there's ups and downs and there's challenges, but that's regardless, But my life with God has been more adventurous and more exciting and more like an adrenaline rush than it could have ever been without Him. And I think that's what these conferences bring to the students. One of the things that some parents will say is, well, I think my child wants to go, and she really seems like she would want to go, but she doesn't have anybody to go with. Does a student have to have a friend go?
No, I'd say that a lot of times students are drawn to the conference because of their peers or their friends that are going, but you don't have to have a friend that goes because you're going to honestly end up making friends within the group pretty quickly, or you'll make friends in other groups outside of your own. A lot of people are really, really welcoming, especially students who have gone before, kids who have gone to the conferences before. They know what it's like. They know what that experience of coming to the conference maybe without a friend or without a classmate is like. And they actually, there's like this little tradition at a lot of the conferences where they have clothespins, and they'll put like their, like a little encouraging message or affirmation on the clothespin. They'll write it with markers, and then they'll go and pin it to somebody kind of secretly. And you feel kind of just like, I don't know, welcomed and embraced. And, I have some even that were pinned on me from a couple years ago. And
did you save them?
There's somewhere with my Stubby stuff, like my bag and like my water bottles and stuff I've collected over the years.
Do you still have your lanyard?
I still have my lanyard. I used to wear that at work, and then it just got completely yucky, so I don't wear it anymore. But so that's kind of a tradition at the conferences, and I know kids will just meet other kids at lunch or at mealtime or in different sessions, and they'll exchange contact information and want to talk to each other and connect with each other. So I think it's a great time to build relationships and to step outside your comfort zone. Because when you get to college, you're going to have this really broad experience as well, and you're probably not going to know anyone or maybe just a few people. And so it's a good encounter in such a safe place for you to be able to do that and have that kind of experience. So you're going to end up making friends really quickly. And I'm always the kind of person or chaperone that will, like, if I see a loner or somebody, like, we'll be pals, like, we'll take care of you. I'll introduce you to people. So,
and I think, and that's how I am when I pick chaperones and I ask someone to chaperone. That's one of the first things that comes up is is this the kind of person that will look after that person that is maybe struggling in relationships, that might be struggling to initiate or to interact and whatnot, and we bring people in, and it's something that we're cognizant of, and that is important, that when your child is in our care for 48 or more hours, that there isn't a minute where they're really feeling uncomfortable, that they feel part of a family, part of a group, and included. That's one of the major things that I've always tried to do first and foremost, is before we even get to here's all about Jesus, is being Jesus, being the face, being the hands, being the feet to somebody who is feeling alone, who does not feel comfortable, and sharing that. Right. Another question I get, or it's not really a question, yeah, it is a question, is, Steubenville Youth Conference is a high school youth conference, but, my son or daughter is going to be in college in the fall. They're too old, right? Why don't you address that?
No, not at all. I've had students who've graduated from St. Joe's, from the school I teach at, and then join us in the summer after having graduated for the Steubenville conference. And they're going to college in the fall. And they actually have a session carved out specifically for students who have recently graduated from high school, where they talk about how do you carry your faith with you to college? What are some of the obstacles you're going to encounter? What are some of the things you need to keep your eyes open for? How do you continue to grow in your relationship with Christ when there's a lot of different things coming at you at the same time? You're trying to make new friends, you're starting new classes, you've got a whole new school environment to get used to, not to mention all kinds of temptations kind of being thrown at you at the same time. It's a lot. And so they give you really practical, not just preachy, but really practical means of navigating college and utilizing your faith in college to see you through a time that can be really challenging for a lot of people. So I would say, even if your student or your child has graduated or will be graduating high school this spring, they should still join us, because that is especially if it's their first conference, that is such an incredible time for them to say, no, now I can make my faith my own, and it's essential for me to live it out when I get to this next level academically and socially. So
and I would even venture to say that those students going into their freshman year of college, that this summer and this conference might be the most important 3 days of their entire summer. Yeah, I know they need to make money for college. I know they have commitments to these games. I know they're busy. They're busy. And you say, they need a break. But actually, going to this conference is the best. I would say it's the best fortress or protection against what's coming next.
Yeah.
What's coming next? College. There's some really dire statistics when it comes to high school teens going into college who are Catholic or Christian, and then going into college, and how many stop practicing their
80%.
faith.
And that was from a few years ago, I think.
Yeah. And then when they're like 23, 24, it even goes farther down. And the Steubenville Youth Conference could be their last opportunity to really have this deep encounter with Jesus, with the church, with the sacraments, with all things that truly are, and the Catholic Church is counterculture.
Yeah, absolutely.
Countercultural.
It's a booster shot for such a vulnerable time, I think. And some of the things that they're going to be encountering are spoken about directly at the conference, not only in that session that's geared specifically towards students who have recently graduated high school, but just across the board. They're very realistic about what is being what's being projected by, mass media, by society, the way the culture is going, and kind of pulling us out of the mud almost, and really opening our eyes to a better path.
Yeah.
And like I said, that's a booster shot in such an enormous way for those who are going to be entering college in the fall. I think what they actually do during that session is they encourage the students to get in touch with the Newman Center or the Catholic Club or Catholic organization on their college campus or in their area, or to connect with their parish so they can find a family, because there's strength in numbers, there's strength in community, and if you're going to lose that in some way in college if you don't seek it out before you get to that point. So you need to have that set up. You need to have the local priest phone number in your phone before you get to college. I mean, that's my recommendation. I think that's something that they stress during those sessions. So, because that's your lifeline, really. Absolutely.
So, if you're watching this and you've had your student go to the conference, or you're a student and you were at the conference last year or whatnot, I encourage you to contact me. All my contact information will be at the end of this video and in the links below. Any questions for parents, for teens, whatever, contact me or Mary. I'll put our contact information below. But we really hope you take advantage of this opportunity. It's life-changing.
Oh my gosh.
It's not just life-changing for the students. It's life-changing for the chaperones. Every year I go to the Steubenville Youth Conference, and there's just a little more that has to be unwrapped, a little more of me that I have to die to, and in dying to myself, God gives me so much more life in Him, and so we're glad you listened, you watched, and why don't you close us out in a prayer?
Absolutely. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, Amen. Dear Lord, we thank you for the opportunity for our students and our kids to attend the Steubenville Youth Conference. We ask that if there's anybody who's hesitant about attending the conference, that you just open their hearts and minds to the gifts that you want to give them at this event.
Yes.
Lord, we ask that you give parents the wisdom and guidance they need to continue to be the first educators of their children in the faith. Give them the strength and courage they need to lead their families to heaven, to your heavenly throne, and to our heavenly home. We ask all this through the intercession of the Blessed Virgin Mary as we pray, Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary,